is going on, everybody? Welcome to the NFL Preseason Live Before Lock, presented by PrizePicks. I am Eric Lindquist. That guy over there, he's the one that we really want to be paying attention to. He knows all the things that have to do with the preseason, college football. He's got a podcast going with Ben Rasa for that. You're going to see a lot of him coming up here on the Awesemo channel. This is his time of the season, so it's his time to shine. Matt Kajewski, how you doing, my dude?
I'm doing great, man. How are you? Thank you for all the kind words again.
Well, I'm just, I don't actually like you. I have to pretend like I like you because it's in my contract. But no, I just got here to Denver. I'm here for the Fantasy Baseball World Championships. My boy Rinpack just qualifies for all this stuff. And once he gets a girlfriend, I'm never going to get to come to these ever again. So I got to take advantage of it now. So I'm hanging out here. I'm ready to talk some football. How does this slate look to you from a bird's eye view right before we get going on anything else?
Yeah, I think it's going to be a good slate. I think there's some clear spots that we want to target. Again, always just looking at playing time. So there's a few spots where I think we can get some leverage, some spots that are pretty clear if you're building cash lineups, everything like that.
Okay, well, that's great because I'm building a cash lineup. I think that's been something very profitable here in preseason. I try to preach that a little bit. That's kind of my way of going about it. Some of these GPPs, you get to make some calls, some defensive calls. We have a higher total than most preseason games in one of these spots. We're going to get to it right off the bat. But before we start, hit that like button for us, hit that subscribe button, hit that notification bell. So, when this and all the other content here at Awesemo is going live. We'll talk a little bit about PrizePicks. I just really want to go position by position with you. We've got two games here. Let's get to it, shall we?
Yeah, let's do it, man.
Let's do it. We've got Kansas City -3.5 going into Arizona here, 41 total points in this one. And then Cincinnati plus 5.5 going into Washington, 35 total points in that. At the quarterback position, I think you did an amazing job in the rundown here at Awesemo. Check out his articles for all the preseason stuff. He does the projections. Again, the guys, I don't want to say it now because I feel like all I do is compliment you, and now I'm self-conscious, but you do such a fantastic job with it. Let's just start at the quarterback position. What are you looking to do here? Because we actually have some roster construction. This isn't just your basic showdown. You're only able to play one of the four defenses if you're playing the regular slate. What are you planning to do here at the quarterback position?
Yeah, it's interesting because we don't have a team that's only trotting out two guys, and we've seen that basically every slate so far,
true.
Which is kind of the cheat code. All right, which team has two quarterbacks going? Tonight, they all have at least three. I do think with that said, Arizona may be playing like 2.5 because Kyler Murray's making his debut. He's not expected to play more than a series or two. So that basically is going to give us, a 1.5 plus for the backups there in Arizona. Kyler Murray actually was really vocal yesterday about how he dislikes the preseason. So I don't know. Can't get Cliff Kingsbury out there playing him a quarter and pissing off his signal caller. So what that really means is I think Chris Streveler is still a great play. He's the dual threat we were targeting last week, and he was actually pretty good rushing the ball. And I think he is the number one quarterback play, but it is a little closer than last week overall.
Yeah, so we're looking at that. It was basically him and Colt McCoy, but we saw Streveler get 24 passing attempts. I mean, he was out there chucking it in week one against the Cowboys, 107 yards in that one. I got to think he's kind of the de facto number one. He's the guy that I'm going to be rostering in my one cash lineup. Is there anybody else you could remotely consider for cash?
I would probably just look to Streveler. If you're looking somewhere else, it's maybe the Bengals signal callers. And this is a situation where they're going to play either 2 or 3 quarterbacks. In their first game, they didn't play Eric Dungy at all, which is interesting. He's kind of a dual threat on the back end of the roster. It seems like they just view him as a pure camp body. So there is the potential for Cincinnati to play just 2 quarterbacks as well. It's Brennan Allen and Kyle Shermer. Neither of them are dual threats, which is why I think the edge is still Streveler.
I think it is too. I'm in complete agreements with you there. Let's talk through a couple more of these guys then as well. If we're looking for some like longer shot GPP guys, it doesn't seem like there's going to be as much opportunity. We have some split. I mean, going through some of these box scores from last week. I mean, is there anything that we can really kind of pull from that? Is there somebody that might stick out that you're thinking this might be a dude to win somebody to a tournament today?
I mean, Shermer played 43 snaps. Now, he didn't exactly play well in those snaps. Cincinnati has a lot of concerns in the offensive line, and they're going up against a very deep Washington front seven. So that's not something I love. But at the same time, there's just so many snaps for him to be had. He played his college ball at Vanderbilt where he was fairly efficient. But again, he's just not going to run whatsoever. So outside of the Cincinnati quarterbacks and Streveler, I think maybe you could look to McCoy in Arizona. He only played 22 snaps in that first game, but maybe it's a little more just because it's the second preseason game now. But one situation I do want to bring up is Kansas City. And okay, I just want to clear the air with this. We've heard Andy Reid say the starter should play a quarter and up to a half. He's said this for like 2 or 3 years now. And in 2019, he said the same thing. And then they came out and played 15 snaps. So if you're thinking about using Patrick Mahomes and some of the starters here, I would be really cautious. Andy Reid hasn't been honest with us really at all during the preseason.
Oh, an NFL coach not telling the truth. That is shocking to me. I am floored. So if you look at the Kansas City rushing and receiving, we'll get to that later. I mean, there are 50 million guys who played in week 1. I mean, that's really kind of what it looks like to me. Almost everybody caught a ball. I mean, I'm going to just list some names. Doris Fountain, he was your 4 receptions. Jody Fortston, Jerick McKinnon, obviously, Elijah McGuire, Cornell Powell, Byron Pingrel, Marcus Kemp. I mean, we're going to see so many dudes playing from the Kansas City side, but I have to say, you're basically looking at quarterback wise. We've got a couple of different guys that we're going to be kind of relying on. It's going to be pretty straightforward there, but anything else to really kind of touch on at the quarterback position here before we move ourselves along?
I wouldn't be looking too much at Washington either. Kyle Allen is back from injury. I do think we see a lot of snaps for Allen and Heineke because that backup job is unsettled. Like Steven Montez played 40 snaps in week 1. That's probably cut in half, and those snaps all go to Heineke and Allen. Heineke is a decent dual threat. So if you're just looking to like GPPs, maybe you could throw a dart with him. But I honestly prefer just getting different in other positions and rolling with Streveler and maybe the Cincinnati signal callers.
Okay. So Shermer and Allen, right?
Yes.
Okay. Perfect. So that's the quarterback position. Also, you alluded to a little college football in the middle of that, which sets this up well. Check out Betting You. I talked about that on the front end of the show, but it's a podcast that you're doing every single, Wednesday, I believe, with Ben Rasa?
Yep, that's right.
Every single Wednesday, putting out some fantastic content. College football, you just said the DFS slate got posted, if I do believe, right before the show.
Yes, sir. That is week 0. Week 1 is also up. There's some big tournaments in week 1, but you know me, we got all the little schools playing in week 0, but I'm really excited for that slate.
Yeah, I know you are because you're a sicko, but also you're very, very sharp. Hear what they have to say about the Heisman races, about some of these smaller conference odds. They know everybody in and out. They have some amazing win totals that they put out on the podcast. Check them out every single Wednesday. Go to Spotify, go to Apple Podcasts, check them out. I know you'll enjoy it because I sure do. Let's go ourselves to the running back position. I don't know what's going on. I'm just starting to have coffee now. We've got Chris Evans was kind of the main guy that, if I do recall, was kind of the center back of your article today. We're looking at a lot of running backs here in Cincinnati. I'm curious kind of how we handle each one of these situations. Maybe this is a good time because running backs are so important to these preseason slates because you can kind of get the guaranteed points. Let's go by the teams, I think, for this one. I think that's probably the right way to do it. So Cincinnati, let's start with their backfield. Who do you kind of see targeting from them?
So they're not going to play Mixon or Pirine much. I think they'll play them a little bit, but again, we're not going to see Burrow. We're not going to see a lot of Chase, Higgins, or Boyd. And last week, we just saw 4 snaps from Mixon and Pirine. They left all of the rest of their snaps basically to Chris Evans and Jock Patrick. This week, we get Puka Williams back, who is an undrafted free agent rookie, came out of Kansas. He's a really small player, but I think they may look at him as like a pass catching complement. And he's somebody that I think could push Chris Evans with a strong performance. So unlike last week, I think the backfield is mostly split 3 ways, but Chris Evans is still the guy they prefer and the one they want to make the roster. He was actually drafted by them, played his college ball at Michigan where he was just a timeshare back, but he's an excellent pass catcher. Jock Patrick, he spent some time in some of the, I'll call them minor football leagues, like the XFL type leagues, but he still played 30 snaps as well. So it was neck and neck with those two. I think it'll probably be closer to like 20 to 25 this week, just with the addition of Williams, but it's still a pretty narrow distribution of touches. 5 backs will be active, but really only 3 are going to be touching the ball.
Oh, that's a very strong positive. I mean, does that make all 3 of them playable? Is it just Evans and then writing off the other 2, or are we kind of looking at rostering the other 2 as well?
I think Evans is the top play, and then slightly behind it would be Patrick. Williams is a really good GPP dart throw just because we've never seen him. He's an explosive player, but he's super, super small. I think he could catch some easy passes out of the backfield, which is great for, like PPR value in these leagues. Think of him kind of like a poor man's JJ Taylor from New England last night.
Okay. Well, Chris Evans played for Michigan, so I think I'm going to have to be rostering him. Staying here with Rinpack, I gotta stay on brand here. There's no way that I'm not rostering Chris Evans in my cash lineup.
He's a great pass catcher too. That's what he did well at Michigan, and he caught 4 balls in preseason week 1.
That's useful on DraftKings especially. So take note of that, PPR. Chris Evans, just kind of lock him in here for cash. That kind of seems pretty easy. Let's jump to the other side of that same game here. Going to Jarrett Peterson, it looks like, because you get rid of Lamar Miller. Lamar Miller was still on an NFL roster. I feel like he's been around for 24 years. Poor guy. He's marred by injuries and whatever else. But I like how you said in the article today, I believe it was trim the fat. Was that the right way of putting it?
Yeah, that's how I worded it. Yeah.
It's not very nice of you. I got to say that was something, but either way, Jarrett Patterson is the guy that we're kind of looking at from this backfield. Antonio Gibson, JD McKissic, Peyton Barber. We all kind of know those names. Are any of those 3 playable to start things off?
I think they'll get more snaps. And this is why I slightly prefer the Cincinnati situation. Washington also has 5 backs active, but you're going to see Mixon and P. Ryan. Very few snaps, probably 5 or less. I think you could see Gibson, McKissic, and Peyton Barber for a few more. And even when we look to what Washington did in their first game, Gibson played 11, McKissic played 9, Barber played 11. Now, I think that's probably where they are today, but that does take away some snaps from the backups that we like in Patterson and Williams. Luckily, all of the second string duties are now going to be split just between those two now that they got rid of Lamar Miller. And they showed a preference towards Patterson. He's a back of the roster guy, very much competing with Peyton Barber, and he's a very different back. Barber's sort of like a big bruiser. Patterson's a little back. He didn't catch really any balls at Buffalo. That's just not kind of the offense they ran. They passed the ball about 30% of the time. But he has shown a skill set being able to catch the ball out of the backfield in camp. Maybe they use him a little bit in that capacity. But I still think it's Patterson mainly from this backfield carrying the work. And I would put him just slightly behind in Evans. I think he's a very good play.
So you're taking Lamar Miller's 3 carries out of the equation. One thing that happens, and it happens every single year, is the rosters start to get trimmed down. You start eliminating players, and running backs are a very volatile position in this regard. I mean, we talked about New England last week when we were on the show, or 2 weeks ago together when we were on the show. And then yesterday, obviously, it came to fruition where you just have a number of plays in the preseason. And as you start eliminating roster spots, there become more availability for these guys. Patterson had 10 carries in that first game, 40 total yards. Definitely think that he makes some sense. Also 4 catches, 30 yards in that spot. So just another standout dude out of those guys. But would Peyton Barber, I feel like if I were playing more tournaments today, would Peyton Barber kind of be the back to pivot off of Patterson with?
I think so. There's one major risk with Patterson. It's goal line work. And this actually happened in week 1. Patterson basically drove them down the field on his first drive in the game, got them near the goal line. He came out, Barber went in, punched it in, got the touchdown.
Okay. Well, that's something you're looking for because 6 points is very, very valuable when it comes to this preseason ball. No doubt about it. I mean, it's valuable all the time, but especially so when, the ceiling is 12 and 14 for just about any player on the slate any given time, unless your name is Stevenson, in which case you're going to just be a god in preseason football. What an all-star that dude is. Let's just jump to the KC side of things. So on this game with a little bit higher total, Jerick McKinnon, we saw him with the Vikings. We saw him with San Francisco. He's now with Kansas City, pass catching back. That's kind of primarily what he does. How does he kind of factor into the equation with all these other starters that are just a little bit ahead of him?
So they played Edwards-Helaire 10 snaps. They played Darrell Williams 7 snaps. So those are the 2 pretty clearly ahead of him. He's battling Darwin Thompson for that 3rd running back job. He, by all accounts, is very much ahead of Thompson. They played 15 and 13 snaps, respectively. And it was interesting to me, this is more, similar to Washington, where the starters are going to play a little bit more than Cincinnati, which I think just brings all the players down a peg. And among the backups, McKinnon and Thompson probably see the most work. But I found it really interesting that Derek Orr actually had 13 snaps himself. So I think this is a 3-way rotation among the backups. Again, I think it'll mostly be McKinnon and Thompson handling the work, but there's enough other involvement from other backs to kind of make this just a secondary running back room for me.
Sorry, I got distracted in the chat because there's a guy named Tink R. Quist in the chat right now, which props to you, sir. I mean, I don't know how you get a better troll game than that on me, but you've hit the pinnacle of life. Let me just say, you've completely body bagged me on stream. Thought I'd give you respect. Tank Arquist. Matt has no idea what I'm talking about whatsoever, so we're gonna move on.
I see it, man. I have the chat up.
I don't want to explain it. Okay, you don't know what it's about, do you?
No.
Okay, thank God. All right, we're going to continue on. We have one more team to cover here in the running back department. We're kind of covering this as best we can. Dude, what a glorious, glorious troll, my lord. Going to the Arizona side of things. What kind of sticks out to you here? Jonathan Ward was the guy that I know you had written up. Chase Edmonds is the name that we recognize. James Conner, the name we really, really recognize. He's activated. He had COVID-19. I think he's going to play a little bit in this game. Correct me if I'm wrong with that. But what are we kind of looking for out of the Arizona backfield?
Yeah, he should play a little bit, and that makes sense. Edmonds played 11 snaps. They're getting Murray out there. AJ Green may even play. He returned to practice this week. I would say he's probably doubtful. I did not include him in the projections. But the running back room is basically going to be split two ways between Eno Benjamin and Jonathan Ward. For a majority of the carries, you'll have little cameo appearances from Chase Edmonds, from James Conner, and then probably from Tavian Feaster with the third team. But this is similar to like a Kansas City where you have two guys battling for that number 3 job. It's Eno Benjamin, who was a former day 3 pick in 2020, and Jonathan Ward, who was an undrafted free agent, came out of Central Michigan. But both these guys both are really good pass catchers, which is what I wanted to highlight. And we liked Ward a lot as a GPP play last week. And I think that made sense. He actually out-touched Benjamin 10-5. It was just that Benjamin scored the touchdown. It seems to me that Benjamin is running ahead of Ward right now. And maybe you see a little bit of extended run from Ward just because he's the one fighting for that job. The one issue is Ward was banged up in the last game. He actually sustained an ankle injury. He's since returned to practice. I believe his first day at practice was the 18th. So 2 days ago. And then yesterday, their practice wasn't open to the media. So we don't know how much he did. Just watch and make sure he's on the field if you're rostering him. The direct pivot is Benjamin, and Benjamin would immediately vault up into that Chris Evans tier if Ward misses the game. Again, Ward is battling for a roster spot. Very much expect him to play, but just something to watch.
Give me your 3 favorite tournament running backs in order. 1, 2, 3.
Ward is number 1. Jock Patrick.
Love it.
Yeah, I mean, Ward is going to see a lot of work, and people keep shying away from him. It's really interesting to me that they go to Benjamin, even though he saw significantly less work, played fewer snaps. And Ward has a really good skill set. He caught, I believe he was over 70 balls at Central Michigan. The figures aren't in front of me, but he's a bigger back too. He's 6 feet, 206 pounds. That's bigger than Benjamin. Went over 1,000 yards in his last 2 seasons. And excuse me, it was actually much higher. He caught 98 balls in college. So really good pass catcher. And Ward, number 2 with Jock Patrick. I think he's just the next person that would take advantage of that scarce Cincinnati backfield. Again, I think if you're looking at Cincinnati, you're probably playing Chris Evans first, but in tournaments, Jock Patrick makes some sense. Mm-hmm. And third's actually Puka Williams in the same backfield. Complete uncertainty with him, which makes him great if you're playing the large field tournaments.
Yeah, I think that Puka play looks really nice. I mean, Jock ended up getting 15 carries last time out, Chris Evans 12. Just thinking about this logically, I mean, those two have to be higher on the pecking order than Puka in terms of making the roster, correct?
Yeah.
Okay, so then you're looking at Puka getting perhaps some more opportunity for sure. And it's very, very condensed. So love that as well. Something else that I love big time here is our fantasy football draft kit. And if you haven't had a chance to look at this yet, the Draft Wingman, it's ridiculous. I've been doing a lot of the best ball drafts. You'll see me posting some stuff for another company that is not PrizePicks. I want to make sure we give our sponsor the due that they deserve. But the draft kit has every single major platform that you could possibly imagine, whether it's PPR, half point PPR, standard leagues, whatever you're looking at drafting, the Wingman can help you do it. It's the easiest way to get an edge on the opposition. Stop trying to do all this groupthink stuff. Check out some of the Awesemo rankings that we have. Guys like Matt Gajewski, Alex Baker, who I just had lunch with. What a lovely individual he is. And Steve Buzzard, another genius who he's just so great at this. I mean, he's done so many of these best ball drafts. Talking with them about best ball, it almost feels like cheating because of how deep their knowledge goes for this. And same thing with you, Matt. It's outrageous how much sharper they are than the average person when it comes to some of these best ball drafts. And that's what everybody's really into right now. The home leagues are just about to get going, though. So definitely be checking out the Draft Wingman best ball rankings and stacking guide. They have a trade value chart on this as well. You'll receive up to a $35 credit for those underdog and FFPC leagues. If you sign up now, you can get the package for 33% off when you use the promo code WR at checkout. And that's less than $10 for everything we have to offer for this season. Check it out. Just click the link in the description of this video to activate the offer. All right, we're going to jump ourselves to wide receivers. It is time for that. Hit that like button too while you're at it. We've got over 500 people talking preseason 2-gamer on a Friday night. Like we're getting lit over here. So definitely hit the like button, if not for me, 4-1 Matt Kachevsky. But Rondale Moore, the first guy right off the bat here. Let's talk Arizona because Arizona is really fun. This is the game with a higher total. I don't know if that means anything to you, but for me, I just kind of look at it being a better opportunity for some of these pass catchers in a PPR format like on DraftKings to really kind of exceed expectations. So I'm really going to quite a bit of pass catchers from the Arizona side. How about yourself?
Yeah, same with me. They're only playing 7 healthy receivers. And I mean, this includes like Christian Kirk, who only played 7 snaps. And we're not expected to see DeAndre Hopkins. He hasn't practiced. Again, AJ Green only recently returned to individual drills. So we're still not really seeing him practice fully with the team. I wouldn't really expect to see him. No Isabella, no Antoine Wesley. So again, they just have 7 receivers. The next team, I guess, with the fewest receivers is Cincinnati with 9. So you're getting a pretty big edge here. And then they already kind of tipped their hand at what they want to see out of these receivers. Rondale Moore played 23 snaps, but those were 23 meaningful snaps. He's their rookie that they're trying to get involved like very much quickly in these games. 4 targets on just those 23 snaps, caught 3 of them, 23 yards. A lot of them are gadget plays. And he also carried the ball twice for 16 yards too. So 7 touches and 23 snaps. They're trying to use him. The other really interesting thing with Arizona was Keyshawn Johnson. I thought he was a lock to make the team, and I did not think he was going to play 53 snaps, just like 53, like downright ridiculous volume for a dude in the preseason. 53 snaps is incredible. And I mean, he only saw 3 targets, but if he's going to be running routes and playing 53 snaps, he's a really strong play.
Oh, it's just gross to think that too. Because I mean, what did he end up getting? He only had like 1 catch, I believe, 1 for 15. That's problematic. He had 3 targets though. Again, we're trying to find some targets here, and it's very condensed, as you alluded to. It's going to be an interest. It's hard to get away from Keyshawn Johnson with that kind of just being on the field, giving yourself that kind of opportunity. And let's see how many pass attempts also were done in that game here. Overall, Strevler had 24 and then Cole McCoy had 7, 31 pass attempts. I think there's plenty of opportunity for pretty much every single one of these guys. I love Rondale Moore, love Keyshawn Johnson. I think they're both kind of staples of what I'm doing today. Is there anybody else that we could kind of be looking at from a deeper flyer that you could just basically swap out Keyshawn with somebody else to get different?
For sure. One guy that also played a lot was Andre Baccellia, who's a second-year undrafted player out of Washington. He's kind of the direct backup for like a Rondale Moore who plays in the slot. He's 5'10", 175, and he played 48 snaps, which is just, again, absolute incredible volume. He wasn't really used a lot at Washington, but he's this blazer, and I think he's on the roster initially to like push Andy Isabella, who unfortunately is on COVID, but this dude ran a 4.28 40-yard dash at his pro day, and he caught 2 targets for 14 yards. So again, not a ton of production there. But this is a guy operating in the slot that should see like Rondale Moore type targets. I think he's a great GPP play, a solid pivot off Rondale Moore if you're looking just for one player like that. And then someone else I'll throw out there was AJ Richardson, 34 snaps for him. He did not catch his lone target, so he ended up with a 0, but he played a lot of snaps. So maybe you could look to him in your deep, I guess I should say your large field tournaments.
Look at that. You caught yourself. You're getting back in the swing of it. Sometimes the terminology, like the first show or two, it's just like, what? Oh, that's what I'm trying to say. There it is. Found it.
That happens to me all the time.
Yeah. Tinkerquist is just having a blast today. I gotta give it to this dude. I'm not even going to block him or ban him or do anything. I think it's pretty freaking funny, actually. Tink R. Quist. What planet are we on? Okay. Going to the next team here on the board. Who was next here? Cincinnati. Let's go to Cincinnati because they had a couple guys that I know you had written up as well. Trenton Irwin is the guy that I have on my sheet here. We know Jamar Chase, T. Higgins, Tyler Boyd. We know all the usual suspects here. They're going to be very, very limited. Are any one of those 3 right off the bat because they'll be probably lower owned knowing that they're starters. Is there any viability to going to one of those three?
I wouldn't. I don't think you're going to see any sort of ceiling with them. They just don't have the snaps. So I would rather look to the depth of this team.
All right. Well, then let's just kind of jump to the depth of the team. Looking at their box score from last time out, Trent Irwin had 3 catches for 35. He was kind of the first guy that really stuck out. Then you had Chris Evans, he's a running back, so we're not going to click him on. Mike Thomas, another name that I tried to make him a thing, I feel like, later in weeks. I can't remember what week that was where I thought it was Mike Thomas week. It was not Mike Thomas week. Trust me, it will never be Mike Thomas week, but he had 2 catches for 32 yards here in this one as well. Anybody else that kind of sticks out to you? I know the Trent Irwin was the main one that you had pointed out, though.
Yeah, so Trent Irwin's their backup slot receiver. I call him backup. He's really their third string slot receiver because it's Tyler Boyd, and then they have Trent Taylor on the team, and then Trenton Irwin is that final slot receiver. It's a battle between Irwin and Taylor for this final job, and Taylor has a leg up right now, so he only played 15 snaps to Irwin's 30. Irwin's been having a great camp, so I think they're going to continue to give him opportunities and push Trent Taylor for this job. That's really why I think he played the 30 snaps in week 1, which did lead their wide receivers, and why he saw those opportunities, which he did pretty good with. 3 catches, 35 yards. He was targeted 5 times, which led the team. So love Irwin there. If you're looking for a GPP option, someone that plays on the outside, Stanley Morgan is a name I like. He went and played his college ball at Nebraska, and he caught 2 of 3 targets for 16 yards in his debut, but he played the second most snaps at 26. He's a bigger receiver. He's like 6'1", 195. So think of him kind of in that Jamar Chase mold. I think he's a little closer to making the roster, but he should receive opportunities as well.
If I listed off 100 football players in the NFL right now, just 100 random football players, how many out of 100 would you know where they went to college?
Probably most of them.
So we're going like 90? Are we feeling like a 90% confidence level?
I don't know. Defense is like the fantasy players are a little easier for me too. But I mean, I covered the draft, so I feel like I would get like 75. I don't know.
Okay. I'm just curious. I feel like you're definitely the guy that if there's bar trivia up in Wisconsin in your neck of the woods and you're not getting a phone call every Tuesday or Wednesday, somebody's doing it wrong for sure. Because there's some knowledge to be had in that for sure. It's like Ben Rosso with Capitals of the World. And if you don't know what I'm talking about, spam the chat next time he's on a show and just name random capitals and he'll just start listing them off. It's disturbing. Let's go to another team here on the board. Looking at Stanley Morgan, you had brought up there. Let's see, Dyami Brown. Let's talk a little bit of him. What do you kind of see out of him? 25 snaps in his preseason debut. Are we kind of looking possibly in his direction as well?
Yeah, he ran a lot of routes, which is great too. So he's their third round rookie, played his college ball at North Carolina. He's a burner downfield, went over 1,000 yards in his final 2 seasons there with a really high yards per reception. He did not play at all with the first team, which isn't necessarily a bad thing here. Again, Washington probably plays 2-3 series with their first team today. So we actually kind of like this for Dyami Brown. He's clearly behind McLaurin, Cam Sims, and Adam Humphries. But again, that's not necessarily a bad thing. And we saw the opportunity with him. He's a player that's a lock to make the roster, but I think he has a chance to ascend the depth chart with positive preseason play, which is why I think he's still probably out there for at least the 25 snaps we saw last week, if not more. And he ran a ton of routes, which is really important, especially towards the end of the games. Players like DeAndre Carter and Isaiah Wright, if we're just looking at Washington, they play a lot of snaps, but a lot of those are running snaps with a third team.
And there's just so many guys. We have nearly 20 guys who saw a target, it looks like, from the Washington side. We can say the same thing about the Kansas City side. I mean, it's almost like if you had to pick one wide receiver from Washington and one wide receiver from Kansas City, the people who are just jumping on the show late, they want to click on a name and put a GPP lineup together. Who would those players be? Because there are just so many dudes.
For GPPs in Washington, it would be Dax Milne, who's a 7th round pick out of BYU. He played 29 snaps in the preseason debut, and I think he's on the outside looking in to make the roster, but he caught 2 of 4 targets for 16 yards, had an enormous season with BYU last year, nearly had 1,200 receiving yards there. I did it again, but he's somebody they're evaluating. Think they'll give him targets. On Kansas City, they're really interesting because you're not going to see a lot of snaps out of Tyreek Hill, Mecole Hardman, Pringle, or Demarcus Robinson. And then the player that led them in snaps last week was Darius Fountain. He played 30. He's the player that the beat writers have been highlighting throughout camp. He turned 6 targets into 4 catches, 38 yards. He's already playing ahead of Cornell Powell and players like Garrett Dieter. Cornell Powell was drafted by them on day 3. And then Garrett Dieter's kind of just a veteran for that team, but he's a veteran presence on the team. He's been there for multiple years. So to see Darius Fountain playing ahead of those guys, I think is telling. He should be out there and see some opportunities again tonight.
Oh, man. Anybody else from the wide receiver position that we haven't touched on whatsoever from any team now? We'll open it up to the entire floor. Is there somebody that, again, at this point, if we haven't said their name, they are the deepest of sleepers, more than likely?
Antonio Gandy Golden is a second-year player, played his ball.
Who did you just say?
Antonio Gandy Golden.
That is a made-up player.
He's a big, like 6'5" possession contested catch receiver, played at Liberty a few years ago, played 27 snaps for Washington. I think he's behind Diami Brown, and he'll probably compete. He'll be competing with like the Dax Milneys of the world. He's one I would mention. On Kansas City, I just think they're so deep. You're probably not getting to any of these guys outside of Fountain. But if you are, like Cornell Powell is that rookie out of Clemson. So they probably try to evaluate him just based on the capital they spent on him.
I have no words. That was fantastic. I could not spell that name still. I need to find out where he is on the board. Wow. Okay.
Gandy Golden.
Gandy Golden. I've never heard a better football name in my entire life.
Yeah, he went to Liberty.
Of course he did. He's in Liberty in Tennessee.
I actually don't know where it is.
Where is Liberty at? Liberty.
But our wonderful
College.
friend Hugh Freeze coaches there.
It's in Lynchburg, Virginia. There we are. Everybody needed to know that. That was extremely important. But much more important than that is PrizePicks. They are the sponsor of our Live Before Lock show for the NFL preseason here. They have daily prop-based games, and they want to help you get started with a deposit bonus right now. You don't have to deal with sharks, optimizers, mass entries, any of that garbage that keeps you from winning. You get to jump on PrizePicks right now, and you pick 2, 3, 4, or 5 players on the board to go over or under their projected scores. And if you pick a 5-player lineup, you can net up to 10x your entry fee right now. PrizePicks offers NBA when that pops back up. They've got MLB going right now, WNBA. They'll obviously the NFL, which we're covering, and esports. There's so much esports stuff over there. It's ridiculous. So if that's your thing, you need to be playing over at PrizePicks. Just go download it at the App Store or on Google Play today and make your first deposit using the promo code Awesemo to receive an instant match deposit bonus of up to $100. Let's take a look at a couple of these props. And Tyler, can you pull it up on my screen as well? Because I'm restricted here in Colorado right now. So it's sad times. I unfortunately cannot get myself over there. Look at you. That is so helpful. Chris Streveler, 17.5 rushing yards. You talked about him being a rushing quarterback, having the dual threat for today. How does 17.5 rushing yards look? Because I feel like that might be a tasty little over.
Yeah, I'm just going to go and look and see what I have him projected for. It's at 11.5.
Mm-hmm. 17.5.
17.5. He projects for 11.3. Actually,
so little under on that. So if you're gonna play him in some tournaments, hop over there and take advantage of the under. A couple of these other guys. I mean, Clyde Edwards-Helaire, 25.5 is way too large of a number for him. I feel like he would have to really bust a play. Looking at last week's box score, going to the Chiefs here, just kind of talking through it. He saw 4 carries for 16 yards. I can't imagine he's going to get any kind of a crazy workload above that. What do you think about 25.5 rushing yards for him?
I have him projected for 25.3.
Well, maybe not. How about that? Okay.
No, I do agree with you.
The number.
Someone actually mentioned this in the chat earlier, talking about the volatility with these projections in particular. And they're absolutely right because, we're not projecting players for the entire game, which the studs like Clyde Edwards-Helaire, like Tyreek Hill, they're playing a majority of the snaps in the regular season. Right now, we're trying to predict not only their playing time, but then their usage when they're on the field, which can be drastically different. A player like Rondale Moore touches the ball 6 times in 23 snaps. Keyshawn Johnson gets 1 catch in 53 snaps. So it's wildly different game to game. You're right about the volatility with these projections. So I will say I would favor the under on the Clyde Edwards-Helaire side of things too, just because I don't see there being a lot of upside for more snaps, but there's certainly downside that Andy Reid pulls him after a drive.
And I think Tyler has a great one up on the board as well. Benjamin there, 28.5 rushing yards. What do you have for Eno Benjamin? Because I feel like the Arizona running back situation here, looking at a couple of these pieces in the backfield, you had how many guys getting rushes there? I mean, Strebler got the 10 carries he just rushed the ball constantly that last time out. But that's got to be a pretty good under as well, correct?
Actually, if you look right below him, I'm on my own PrizePicks, but Jonathan Ward at 15 rushing yards. Like, if you want to go over, if you're just talking between Eno Benjamin's prop and Ward's prop, I would rather hit the over on Ward's at 15 and a half yards. Again, he outtouched Benjamin 10-5 and played more snaps, and he's on the field warming up. So it looks like he's going to go.
Okay. And he had the 6 carries there as well, which is what we're worried about for the rushing purposes. Probably some upside for a little bit more. Chase Edmonds, he's secure in his spot there. We'll see James Conner maybe a little bit. That might cut in a tiny bit to the workload, but we know who it's going to be. So I think that those are all fantastic plays for PrizePicks today. Check them out. Use that promo code Awesemo for $100 first match deposit bonus and get started over there. All right. Well, here's a fun position, tight end. Generally, with the Kansas City Chiefs, it's a plug-in play. You know that it's going to be Travis Kelce. Little different situation. No Patrick Mahomes, no Travis Kelce. So it becomes one Jody Fortson. Talk to me about him, because I feel like in your projections, he was the guy who was popping.
Yeah, unfortunately, he's a receiver on DraftKings. You can only play him at tight end on FanDuel.
Gross.
But I think you very much want to do so. If you look at any reports coming out of Kansas City this preseason, he has significantly outproduced Noah Gray, who was their draft pick out of Duke. He was a day 3 pick, so it's not like they spent a ton of capital on Noah Gray, but he's a dude that, played a lot in college. He caught 51 balls as a junior, so he is certainly somebody with, at least a little bit of pedigree coming out of school. And to see Fortson come out here and just outproduce him, that's really telling. And Fortson had 5 targets in that first game, caught 3 of them, 32 yards. I think there's a great floor with him. So I'm playing Fortson on FanDuel. On DraftKings, Kansas City still has a really narrow tight end room. And again, if you just look at the snaps between these two players, you had Fortson at 35, Noah Gray at 33. Now, in the box score, Noah Gray targeted twice, didn't catch either of them. That's not great, but he still stands out to me as the top tight end play on DraftKings just because Fortson's a receiver.
Got it. Okay. Well, that's a very important thing to make distinction of. Moving along, you said Noah Gray for that one. Thaddeus Moss is another guy here for the Bengals. You got Drew Sample, CJ Uzoma, guys that we're familiar with. At least we've heard the names of before. Thaddeus Moss, I know zero about. Where did he go to college?
LSU.
There you go. So that seems important. Thaddeus Moss was a beast in college. I know that name.
Yeah, he played with Joe Burrow. Unfortunately,
he was great.
You don't get to see that connection because Burrow's not playing. But yeah.
Okay.
He went
Did
undrafted.
he just say, hey, draft all my former teammates to make me happy?
It's funny. Thaddeus Moss went undrafted. He's actually one of the least athletic prospects as a tight end to come out recently. I think he just really benefited from playing with Joe Brady at LSU. But then he actually played for Washington last year, if I'm not mistaken, and then was let go at some point during the year and now makes the journey over to Cincinnati, where he's been playing really well this preseason. And his main competition, Cheyenne O'Grady, he's a player that hasn't been able to get on the field. Mason Schreck, just 15 snaps for him. And Mitchell Wilcox has been dealing with an ankle injury. I don't think we see a ton of Sample and Uzoma. They played 3 and 5 snaps respectively. That should leave a ton of room out there for Moss, who did play 36 snaps last week. And again, caught nearly 50 balls in his final season with LSU. So ton of production, big receiving tight end.
Yeah, I was going to say, I know that he made an impact, at least in that title game, from what I remember for sure. A guy that was definitely in play for some of those showdown slates. I get into the showdown college football season. I think those are like really, really fun slates to be playing. Again, I don't know anything other than what you tell me, and I just play your projections when it comes to the college football DFS. And I got to say, it treats me pretty well. So I'm looking forward to that again this season. Last guy on your board that I'm going to bring up is Ross Travis. Somebody who played 32 snaps here out of Penn State. I know that because he played basketball, if I do recall.
He did.
I remember that. I know my college basketball. That's all I got.
Oh man, we'll have to talk college basketball when that season rolls around. But before we get there, we'll talk Ross Travis. Again, he easily led the tight end room in snaps there, 32. Unfortunately, he wasn't really used on the field. He had just 1 target, which he didn't catch. And there's 6 tight ends on this roster. Again, I think Max Williams and Daryl Daniels probably play a little more today. Demetrius Harris is more of he's probably just a little more polished than Ross Travis right now. Again, Ross Travis hasn't been playing football at the highest level for very long. So I would rather play the tight ends we already mentioned in like a Noah Gray, a Jody Fortson if you're on FanDuel, and Thad Moss. But I guess one last guy just to tie this all together on Washington would be John Bates. This tight end room is a little bit depleted. Logan Thomas played 14 snaps in the first game, and then they had Tamarack Hemingway out for this game with a concussion. Sammy Reyes also in concussion protocol. So that narrows the tight end room. They do have 4 on the roster, but Caleb Wilson was signed on Monday. That leaves basically just Bates and Ricky Seals-Jones to work with, the second and third teams. Bates is a rookie out of Boise State, was never super productive in college. In his final season, he caught 22 balls. So, I mean, we're not talking about like an elite receiving option here, but I do think they try to evaluate him given they spent a day 3 pick on him.
Anything else from tight end whatsoever?
I would say no. I would stick with the Chiefs guys. Thad Moss is a great GPP option just because the Chiefs probably carry so much ownership. From there, I'm looking to the John Bates and the Ross Travises if you're playing the large GPPs.
Okay. I'm plugging in I'm going to make one tournament lineup because I'd be remiss not to go through a lot of this with you and not do such a thing. I think that might be what a lot of people in YouTube chat are doing. If they're not, Tink are quisting over there. Whatever. I don't even know what to say anymore. One last thing. NFL DFS. Check out the early bird specials we have going with the NFL Awesemo Plus annual pass, 25% off with the promo code BLITZ. That's a full season's worth of Awesemo Plus player projections, ownership projections, top stacks, premium Slack, and so many more things that we're adding as we go along. We're not making it up. We've got it all prepped for you. It's August 20th. We have the draft wingman. We have all the NFL DFS stuff you could ever want. And as an added bonus, that includes the projections right now and updated depth charts for all the preseason long stuff that we're talking about here right now. It's promo code BLITZ for 25% off Awesemo Plus NFL Annual. Just click the pinned link in YouTube chat or the link in the description box of this video to activate that. You need to be checking it out. We've got some of the best NFL minds here in the business. Can't tell you enough how important they've been to my process over the years, even before I got here to Awesemo. I promise you that they will definitely be taking care of you as well. All right, we've got defenses, and defenses are exponentially more important when there's 4 of them on this board because we know how valuable they can be in showdown. Well, we can't just plug and play 2 of them, and unless it's the Eagles last night, in which case, Rip City. That didn't go well. Talk to me a little bit about the defensive side of the ball.
I think Washington's the best play, but there's so much volatility on defense. If you're playing multiple lineups in tournaments, you just want to be mixing and matching similar to the regular season. But if you're trying to find those edges, I do think Washington's the best play. Not only are they 5.5 point favorites, but Burrow is not going to play. That means most of your snaps are coming against Brendan Allen and Kyle Shermer, who aren't NFL caliber signal callers. Not to mention the Bengals have one of the most banged up offensive lines right now that wasn't exactly elite to begin with, going against a very deep Washington front seven. So, I mean, you're not going to see Chase Young for like a quarter or anything, but even the backups on Washington, they're very deep there, which gives them a lot of sack opportunities. If Cincinnati's throwing the ball, turnover opportunities, potentially pick sixes. So they're the first defense I'd look at. Second is the Chiefs as a 3.5 point favorite. That game has a higher total overall, so we're expecting more points, but those would be the 2 preferred defenses.
Yeah, and I'm going to prefer Washington defense all year, all season long. If you want to check out any of the Awesemo odds videos that we've got putting out, I saw that the one that I did with Greg Ehrenberg yesterday just got posted while we were on this show. We talk over-unders for week 1. Absolutely love the Chargers and Washington football team. Of course, most of those guys are not going to be playing that whole first-round defensive line that they have. They've got the interior backs or the interior defensive guys from Alabama. You've got obviously Chase Young on the edge. That's helpful. The other guy is not too bad himself. So I'm looking at this team going forward as just being unbelievable defensively. I guess that carries over into the preseason too, because it's the same scheme. You're going up against a Cincinnati team that is just not going to be very good. This has a lower total too. I think that has to do something with why I'd probably be weighting these defenses a little bit higher, but I suppose the ball will be getting slung around in the Chiefs and Cardinals game. If you had to pick one of those 2, which one do you prioritize?
Between the Chiefs and the Cardinals for defense?
Chiefs and the Cardinals defenses, yes.
I prefer the Chiefs slightly just as a 3.5 point favorite. But I actually think there could be some merit to playing the Cardinals, just because when you look to the second half with quarterbacks like Streveler, he's going to be running the ball a little bit. That's not going to create turnover opportunities unless he fumbles. So if you're just looking for players that are going to take more sacks and throw more interceptions, maybe you could gain some leverage by playing somebody like the Cardinals against the Chiefs backups rather than hitting a dual threat when you're playing the Chiefs defense. I still slightly prefer Kansas City, but Arizona is interesting in GPPs to me.
All right. Wow. Well, we got everything covered. We went through every single thing, position by position, 45 minutes. We've got 15 minutes here for questions. I'm going to start it off with one, just because I think it needs to be addressed right off the bat. Brad Swint in the chat threw out a question. Isn't Mahomes playing a half tonight? I do not believe so. I don't know if he's playing. Is he playing whatsoever tonight?
I think he'll play. I don't think Andy Reid is just going to straight lie about his playing time, but he has done this multiple seasons. Going back to 2019, he said his starters would play into the second half, and I checked the box scores. Patrick Mahomes played 15 snaps. He did not play into the second half. In week 1 of the preseason, go back last week, he said the starters were going to play a full quarter. Patrick Mahomes played 4 snaps. Clyde Edwards-Helaire played 10, so a little bit more.
Yeah.
But Tyreek Hill 8, Mecole Hardman 5, Byron Pringle 7. The starters are not playing a full half tonight.
Patrick Mahomes threw 2 balls against San Francisco last week. It's just not going to, I can't imagine that you're going to put Patrick Mahomes out there for a half. So do not play him. Do not play him. Do not play him. I cannot emphasize that enough. 2% of people are going to click on his name just because his name is Patrick Mahomes. So that's the rate. That's why preseason is so great, in my opinion, is people just play starters, and it can't get much better than that. But everybody fire your questions in. We're ready to rock with some of those. Let's see what we have here. Nothing I'm looking at here right off the bat. Why don't you recap the slate here? If anybody's getting in late, let's just kind of go position by position one more time. Your favorite quarterback on the board for cash today?
It's Streveler from Arizona. It's based mostly on rushing upside, and all these teams have 3 quarterbacks active tonight. I think Kyler Murray plays the least out of the starters. One little wrinkle is Cincinnati. They have 3 quarterbacks active, but they did last week as well, and Dungy just didn't see the field. I would still give the edge towards Streveler for Arizona because Brendan Allen and Kyle Shermer don't offer really anything with their legs.
I did not mean to delete this comment because I thought it was hilarious. Jake Kaw said, I like Eric, but he is wound up like every sentence hinges upon him getting late on prom night. Yeah, everything's very important. This is a matter of life and death. I'm trying to win you money. Okay, Matt, you can't laugh. You can't laugh that hard. You can do
That's
like the funny comment. Fuck you, okay? Leave me alone. That's not very nice.
I didn't mean anything by it. It's just
I'm kidding.
It's funny.
It was hilarious. I did not mean to delete it, so I had to read it for the people. I wanted to make people know that I can make fun of myself. I just absolutely love just getting thrashed in chat today. It's good to have the NFL chat. This is a little spicier than MLB. I feel like MLB, we've kind of gotten in a groove. Everybody's nice to each other. Everybody's kind and says nice things. It's nice to get a little off the reservation over here. Big fan of that. Going to the running back position, your favorite running back. If you're playing one running back and you have to pick him, who's it going to be?
It's Chris Evans for Cincinnati. Great pass catcher, caught 4 balls in the first game. Again, it's 5 running backs for all these teams tonight, but with Cincinnati, it's closer to 3 because Mixon and Pirine probably don't play much. 4 snaps apiece for them in the debut. Burrow's not playing, kind of tipping Cincinnati's hand that they're not going to play their starters much, if at all. From there, you have Chris Evans battling Jock Patrick and Puka Williams, who will be active after missing week 1. I think he has a great floor as a pass catcher, and it is still a narrow distribution, despite there being 5 backs technically active.
I have to apologize to you because Blitz required it. I'm so sorry that I said F you. It's not very nice.
Oh, it's fine, man.
Okay, cool. Okay, then I don't take it back. All right. I just wanted to make sure. I want to go to the wide receiver position. Your favorite wide receiver on the board, not just for cash, but for tournaments too. Because I think running back, pretty clear cut from what you had covered in your article.
Yeah, for cash and tournaments, I think you're looking to Arizona either way. For cash, it's probably Rondale Moore, Keyshawn Johnson. If you want to play 2, I think you absolutely can because they only have 7 receivers tonight. There's a big difference in how they were used. Again, Rondale Moore, 23 snaps, 6 touches. So while he's not playing a ton, he is very much involved in the game plan when he's out there. Keyshawn Johnson played a ton more, 53 snaps. He only caught 1 of 3 targets, so just not as involved, but that's still a ton of playing time. I think they're great for cash. From there, a player like Andre Bocellia is a great pivot. He's not getting talked about a lot in like the preseason DFS industry, but he still played 48 snaps in week 1, had 5 targets, which is still great opportunities, more targets than Keyshawn Johnson. He's kind of like a slot only backup to Rondale Moore. Again, he's just 5'10", 175 pounds, but ran that 4.28 40-yard dash. Big plays, like similar to a Quez Watkins where he took that screen to the house. Those are in the range of outcomes for Bocellia. So I love him in tournaments as a pivot off Rondale Moore and Keyshawn Johnson.
Well, and then you got to play Gandy Golden because you just have to. It's a lock. Like Gandy Golden is catching a touchdown pass today. I don't know what it is. You know those feelings that you get when there's no data, there's nothing that points to a dude, but you just love his name, or it's like in basketball when you just want to roster the Morris twins next to each other. It's that's what the way I feel about this Gandy Golden cat. I just can't believe that's his name. So I'm definitely going to be playing him. The tight end position, I'm going to be playing Randy Moss's son. I'm going to be doing that. How about yourself?
I love Randy Moss's son, Thad. I think if you're playing cash and low risk contests, you're looking to the Chiefs tight ends. Jody Fortson, only available on FanDuel. He's a receiver on DraftKings. Probably don't prefer him there. And then Noah Gray on DraftKings. Just a really narrow tight end room in Kansas City right now.
All right. Well, now we've kind of covered everything up and down. Anybody want to throw anything into premium Slack? Oh, we've got a couple of them. Any kickers in play tonight? Is there a showdown slate that I am not looking at that I need to be looking at right now?
KC, Arizona is the showdown slate.
Okay. Is there some contests still open for that? I can jump in that quick. Kickers. Can you just address kickers in that one then?
Yeah, I don't know if showdown slates if they're still available, but I mean, both of these teams are strong targets for kickers. They only have one kicker apiece on the roster. So Harrison Butker, we all know him from just normal DFS. Mm-hmm. He's the only kicker there. And then Prater's the only kicker in Arizona. So you could play either of them. Based on the implied total, Butker projects a little bit better. But again, really volatile projections for preseason DFS. Feel free to use Prater as a pivot.
All right, I'm going to play Diami Brown here too. I'm going to throw him into the mix. Oh man, this is going to be a fun day. This is going to be a fun day of preseason ball. Glad I built a GPP lineup. That would have been kind of sad at this point. What's the highest exposure you would go for wide receivers and running backs on a DK GPP? Would you lock somebody in? Let's just call it a 20 max for the heck of it. That's from Kilo Whiskey in the premium Slack. What in a 20 max, what's the most of a wide receiver or running back you would want? How much Chris Evans would you want, would I say?
I have a ton of Chris Evans. I'm playing 20 max tonight. He's about 60, 70%. I don't have it directly in front of me uploaded before the stream, but he was in that range. So nearly 3/4 of the lineups had Evans.
Okay. I figured he was probably your highest exposed. So I wanted to just kind of hone in on him.
He's up there.
Okay. And then what would be your highest exposure wide receiver? Somebody else asked top wide receivers. I think we've done that 3 or 4 times, but it's Boss Bra. He's good people. So I want to bring it up. Who's your highest exposed wide receiver?
It's Rondale Moore. He's close to 50%, but I think one way to differentiate your lineups is to play the chalk at running back, quarterback. We know where those opportunities are going to go. Wide receiver is far more volatile. And I won't just continue to hammer this home with the Arizona example, but like Keyshawn Johnson, 53 snaps, just 3 targets, 1 catch. You could be out there for a ton of snaps, not necessarily get there. So I like to differentiate a little more at wide receiver, which is why the exposures aren't quite as high. I don't have anybody in that like 60, 70 range at wide receiver. And the most is Rondale Moore.
Okay. Throwing him in. Somebody brought up Four Loko. It was only a matter of time. That makes me happy. Prater or Butker?
I prefer Butker just based on implied team total, but
okay. Wanted to throw that one out there. Should I roster Christian Kirk? I'm going to say a big fat no.
I would not roster Christian Kirk. A lot of better options. I mean, he's fine in GPPs, like big GPPs, but only 7 snaps in week 1. Probably not going to get a ton of extra run. I would look other ways.
As kind of a no-brain process to things for preseason, if you know the name of the player, most of the time you should be lower on them because they're already going to be rostered by the field. Is that kind of a fair assessment?
Can you repeat that again? So
a lot of the time in preseason, it seems like if there's name recognition around a player, like a regular season flyer, whether it's a Christian Kirk or Rondale Moore, I'm going to say is probably more in the preseason realm of things because he hasn't necessarily blown up in any kind of a meaningful way during the regular season. But Christian Kirk, name recognition, somebody people have rostered in regular DFS. You should almost be lower on them by default because people who are just jumping into preseason tonight are going to be clicking on his name just because.
Yeah, I think that's viable. Like pretty valuable.
Okay. I'm late to the show. So who are the top 3 plays? I can guarantee you Chris Evans is 1, 2 other top plays just for a flex.
For a flex, I was going to say Strevler, so we'll just get that out of the way. But for flexes, you should be looking primarily at running backs outside of enormous tournaments. I like Eno Benjamin. I also like Jonathan Ward if you're playing big tournaments as a pivot to Eno Benjamin, but just want to highlight those 2. And then outside of Evans, Jarrett Patterson for Buffalo should get a lot of work tonight too. And just one more comment on those, like differentiating with wide receivers in big tournaments, that is, like in cash player guys. But for example, Kansas City in tournaments, we don't want to roster them in cash because they have the most active receivers playing. But somebody's going to go out there and catch passes and potentially score touchdowns. In the week prior, it was Darius Fountain, 4 catches from 6 targets. Jody Fortson had 3 catches on 5 targets. But then you have guys like Cornell Powell had three targets. He's a guy that they drafted on day 3 out of Clemson. You have Marcus Kemp. He had 3 targets. And like players, Byron Pringle scored a touchdown, which is going to be huge in tournaments. So differentiating with teams like Kansas City, and you're only probably going to have to play one of them. You don't have to get crazy, but say you take out like a Diami Brown and you put a guy like Darius Fountain in your lineup. That probably is enough just to naturally differentiate you.
Somebody just said Antoine Wesley is playing. I know that he's a Texas Tech guy. I don't know anything else about his status. Does that matter to you whatsoever?
He did not play in week 1. He did return to individual drills, which was a bit surprising. I don't think he's really going to take a ton of snaps away from the big 3 we mentioned. If he does take snaps away from somebody, I think it's AJ Richardson, who played 34 just based out of necessity. But the Cardinals did not play their back or the roster receivers a lot. Rico Gafford, 8 snaps. Greg Dortch, 16 snaps. He's the UDFA out of Wake Forest a couple years ago. So I don't think Wesley gets a ton of run, but you could maybe look to him in GPPs because nobody knows he's playing.
Somebody just said preseason fantasy feels like Madden Sims. I think that's pretty accurate. I don't think that that's terribly far off. Scoring is low, and I feel like that's a Madden Sims type thing. Anybody else that's bringing up anything? We've got 2 minutes left to go. So if you haven't gotten your lineups in, you're probably screwed. But in the meantime, get your lineups in. How about that? This is the final countdown. However you want to do that.
I will say on Antoine Wesley, if he like garners a decent amount of snaps, I don't think it comes at the expense of Rondale Moore or Bachelia. Antoine Wesley is kind of a bigger bodied receiver. If anything, I think he sort of affects like Keyshawn Johnson and Richardson on the outside. Wesley is a 6'4", 206-pound receiver. He's not the guy that's going to be out there replacing like the 5'10", 175 Bachelia or Rondale Moore, who's even shorter than that. So maybe it affects Keyshawn Johnson, maybe it affects Richardson, but I wouldn't be too worried.
All right, Matt, you take like a minute, get your lineups in, focus on what you need to do here for a minute.
I'm going to man. We didn't have any crazy news.
Oh, okay. Well, then that's exciting. We've got 2 minutes left. And
yeah, imagine if like Strevler was ruled out.
Oh my God. I'd probably just jump. And I mean, I'm in Denver. I don't want to die in Denver. That doesn't seem like the ideal place. I want to Los Angeles. I want to go out in a fury if I'm going to go out anywhere, but that's a weird thing to bring up on a stream for sure. I got to say though, I'm excited. I get to go check out a Rockies game directly after this. Hopefully there's a zillion runs scored. Looking forward to that. Coors Field's so beautiful. It's just right here. It's right here. It's crazy how downtown this place is. Very excited. Haven't been back there in 10 years. Looking forward to that. Cheer on all the Awesemo guys here. We've got Alex, Steve, and of course my dude Rinpack. All of them are going to be competing tomorrow, 6 gamer in the afternoon. Check out all of our MLB content, starting with the strategy show in the morning. We've got the live before lock deeper dive in the afternoons per usual. Be checking out all of those. I will not be on those gracefully. I'll be able to hang out and live my life cheering him on, but looking forward to that. Matt, any final words for the people as we sign off?
Just good luck, everybody. Thank you for all the support. Got over 100 likes, so really appreciate that. Eric, have fun in Denver. It's a great place. I went there for the first time in July, so I hope you have fun, man.
I will do. Thank you so much to everybody. Hit that like button, hit the subscribe button, hit the notification bell on the way out. If you guys want to, leave a comment in the YouTube chat at the end of this video. Let us know who your favorite week 1 plays are. If you've looked at any of the DFS slates, let us know who you're kind of going to be relying on. But otherwise, just looking forward to watching a little football here, because we'll be able to watch a little bit from where we're at here with FanDuel. Looking forward to it. But otherwise, he's Matt Kajewski. He's a genius. I'm Eric Lindquist, and I'm a fish. Bye, Tank Harquist. Signing off. We're out of here. Bye, boys. And Blitz.